All right, so now let's just finish off this problem. So I'll go back, and our next criteria is, we're going to add in, is that we only want to keep, well, let's add this part first. So we're only going to go with these two columns. So fact name, comma, loc name. So I'll come back here. So originally we had a star there, but the actual query said fact name, loc name. And so once again, this should be something that you just know what this is. What's listed after the select is which columns of data we want to keep. So they're saying we only want to keep this column and this column of data. We don't even want to look at the other three. It's not that they don't exist, but it's just we don't want to view them in our results. And that makes sense, right? In most cases, you end up with tables that have a lot of data in them. You're only really interested in looking at some of the data related to whatever you're interested in. So in this case, it's like we're basically trying to figure out which locations match which facilities. And I don't really care about all these numbers, okay? It doesn't hurt to have them there, but it's just extra stuff that I don't need. So I'm going to filter this down and only look at the columns I'm really interested in, this one and this one. And so that's what this is doing right here, just saying which columns to keep. So when I run this, try this again. Okay, now we only have those two columns of data. Okay, and again, where they match up. So there's really the join that we're interested in between those two tables. So now all we have to do is add the last little criteria on here, and this is just something that, again, I gave you this. So maybe we're only interested in looking at the locations that correspond with the basketball arena. So I'm going to come back here. I'm going to add that. Go ahead and paste that here. And so I'm now, again, this is after the where. So this is once again saying which rows do you want to keep. And I'm saying only keep the rows where the facility name is equal to basketball arena. So only keep this row and this row, because those are the only ones I'm interested in looking at. Again, that's just assuming we're trying to find all the locations going with the basketball arena. So before I click run here, I need to point out one thing that you need to be careful about. So I did a copy and a paste into Oracle, and from Word into Oracle into the website here, and that works in most cases, but there are some symbols that don't always work perfectly because they're not exactly what you think. So these little single quotes here that I had over in Word, well, they're a slightly different version of single quotes than just a standard single quote. If you look at them closely, you can see that they curve two different directions. So those are kind of fancy quotes that you have in like a word processor to make them look a certain way, but they're not actually single quotes. And if I try to run this, it's going to give me an error and say I don't understand what that is, what that symbol is. So if you copy and paste, just be a little careful, because you might copy and paste things from one application that don't really work in another. So I'm going to go ahead and come in here and just replace those. I'm just deleting them and typing single quote, and now it's putting in the normal, just straight up and down single quote, which is what the database is expecting. It's not expecting the fancy things that were stored in Word. And we'll see if I run this. Okay, it only gets me the ones that are for the basketball arena. So that's the answer you should have gotten. And again, a lot of you got that, but I wanted you to see why it's actually doing what it's doing, or how the database is interpreting that. Joining the two tables together, think about that first, okay, and what that means, getting this big table, and then just filter it down. Only keep these columns, only keep the rows where these two things match up, and only keep the rows that actually are for the basketball arena.